I'd like for you to imagine identical twins. Same upbringing, same parents, same education, and you give them each the task of hammering a nail to a board. However, you only give a hammer to twin A. Okay, so twin A obviously can accomplish this no problem. Twin B, on the other hand, they're going to have a tougher time. They might, find a rock or a shoe that they can use, or turn the nail upside down and use the board as a hammer. Chances are his board and nail are going to be a bit more mangled than twin A, and it's going to take him a lot longer. Does that mean that twin B is less intelligent than twin A? No, he just didn't have the correct tool. So if you're not a very good student, or you think your children are really struggling with this, maybe it's because nobody has ever given them this tool. Hi there, my name is Karen, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing if you'd like to go from questions to confidence when it comes to homeschooling. I'm here to answer questions, and today we're going to answer the question, how do you truly learn? How do you really study? If you go back and think about your education growing up, or maybe your children right now, a lot of it is learning by doing, right? Working out problems, homework, all of that, right? What if there is no homework? If you go to college and the teacher just walks in, gives a lecture on the information, answers some questions, and then leaves, and then will test you on that knowledge later on, and that's it. There's no homework. Then how do you learn? Now, if you have the kind of mind that can just absorb all of the information presented to you, then you have no problems. You don't need to learn another tool. But for those of us that doesn't come easily, then we do need another tool than just homework. So that's where this video comes in. See, you might be tempted to just say, oh, I'm not as good as so-and-so. They just have more abilities. They're just smarter. They just have better genes than I do. And that's a really bad place to be, because as a man thinketh, so is he. And you're programming yourself with these self-deprecating thoughts, this defeatist attitude. Here's the truth. Most of us were raised with this kind of 3S system. Sit still and study silently. But really, what exactly does that mean? You're just sitting there and kind of pronouncing these words that you're reading in your mind over and over while your mind is wandering and you're probably easily distracted. Who's been there? The trick is to find the method that fills in the gap between the information being presented to you and being tested on that info that requires your total concentration. So here's a powerful truth, is that you learn by teaching. The Apostle Paul said in Romans 2:21, "Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest not thyself." And a lot of experiments have been conducted on this, where they have a test group here, where they're just learning the information, they're just being told the information, versus another one here is being told the information, but then they have to in turn turn around and teach it to somebody else. And of course, the group that is teaching it, they retain and understand the information a lot better than the other group. And it's a known fact that we retain 14% of what we hear, 22% of both what we see and hear, 70% of the movies we play in our mind, and 91% of what we teach. That 91%, that's an A right there. And something else that we really need to keep in mind is that there is power in our tongues. For example, Proverbs 18:21 talks about, being the power of life and death. The saying goes on the playground, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Actually, it's the opposite. Bruises can heal, but the wounds left behind by careless words can truly be devastating and become a movie that people then play in their mind over and over. This is why self-talk is so important. How you talk to yourself internally. If you're just constantly putting yourself down or telling yourself that you're not smart, this is again a really bad place to be. So thinking about this whole concept of your tongue and talking, yes, we have those conversations where it's really awkward because you can't get the other person to talk much. But in those conversations where, you and somebody else are just talking, and you're almost talking over each other, you're just kind of waiting for your turn to talk. Those conversations are really fun if you think about it. You enjoy those types of conversations. And when did you have the most fun in those conversations? When you were doing the talking, right? A lot of times, you could be just waiting to get the next word in. So we're going to tie together the concept of teaching to learn and the power of the tongue, and also concentration, because overachievers, one of the biggest, attributes about them is that they're able to kind of laser focus, concentrate on something without being easily distracted. And just to let you know where this information is coming from, it's a book called The Overnight Student. And you can find this book, this little resource with RC and RC Online. You can print it, you can read it. The RC course of study briefly mentions it as well. And it's a really fascinating story of this one man who, he had kind of like he was an average student, B's, C's, occasional A's that he was really proud of. Just kind of going through high school, and he decided, hey, I think I do pretty well at college. So he applied for, I believe it was the University of Oklahoma. Now, that first semester, he actually had a 1.9 GPA, and so that put him on probation. Now, after that, he went on to just get straight F's. So the university asked him to take a semester break before coming back. When he re-enrolled, again, he got straight F's. And at that time, the university asked him to take a 2-year leave before coming back. Basically, their way of just saying, you aren't cut out for this, don't come back. But he did come back. 2 years later, he asked to re-enroll again, and they told him he could, but through correspondence courses. This is before online school. So he gladly took it, and he thought, hey, this is even better. I'll have more time to kind of study on my own. And he studied, he read, he reread, he was underlining, and still he was not getting the results that he wanted. So what was going on? So one day he's talking to his girlfriend's mother, and she made the comment, I always got good grades and never had to crack a book. Well, this kind of infuriated him, but he got to the point where he asked, how did you do it? And this is the method that she taught him, which then he turned around and used and became a straight A student. Straight A's after that. In fact, it was so impressive that they asked him to give lectures to other students, to other classrooms on his method. And he thought this was just insulting their intelligence because it was so easy. It was so basic. But yet he got over his nerves and he delivered the material. And guess what? Professors were reporting the huge improvements that their classrooms, that their students had by using this simple method. So what is this method? Well, part one involves note-taking. That's right, just simple note-taking. See, textbooks are great and you can read them and reread them, but a lot of times they have errors or they're just not written in a way for you to really have the best understanding, comprehension of it, retention. So you've got to rely instead on your own notes. And the overnight student does go over a specific note-taking formula to make sure that you don't miss anything. But that's just half the problem. How do you get these notes from your note cards, from your paper, to actually stay in your brain? Have you ever heard somebody say, I know it, I just don't really know how to explain it? Well, they're fooling themselves. You really don't know something if you can't explain it to somebody else. Well, that's where the teaching part comes in, part two. See, what happens is you take a bite-sized chunk of information from your notes. Better if you have it in little, note cards or just from your piece of paper. Just take a little bite-sized chunk and look at it, read it, and then turn it over, because you're not going to have access to it when you take a test, right? So then turn it over and then turn around and pretend to be teaching it to a class. And don't be monotone and just kind of reciting the information. No, you need to actually pretend that you are teaching a classroom. Use inflection in your voice, use your own examples, make it your own information, not just reciting it. Use your own illustrations and stories and really get into it. If there's a teacher or a motivational speaker that you really like, try to be like them, but making the information your own. That's how you really retain it. So after you've done that with one chunk of information, then go ahead and grab another chunk, another bite-sized chunk of information, and do the exact same thing until you've gone through all your notes or all your note cards. And he actually uses the example of Isaiah 28:13, where it talks about teaching, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. So the key is to take little pieces, little chunks, and teach them to somebody else, using your tongue, talking out loud. Now, the book kind of expands this concept into giving you lots of little tips and ideas, strategies. For example, having a table and laying down all the cards down, and then you pick up a card, look at it, put it down, kind of walk around or pace back and forth, not reciting the information, obviously, explaining it, teaching it to others using your own stories, and then coming back, putting the card down, and then coming back to the table, looking at another card, putting it down, and repeating the process. That momentum of kind of pacing or walking around the table, it just kind of accelerates your mind and body. So this really helps. Another tip is to really visualize the information. You can retain a lot of facts and dates if you kind of use pictures in your head. For example, things about Lincoln, find a way to relate them to the Lincoln car and assigning a fact to each component inside the car. Again, just really trying to visualize it. You could do this with history, with anything really, visualizing it. The Bible again talks about the people perish where there is no vision. You must use your imagination. You must have a vision. This is very key. Visualization goes into that 70% that we retain of movies that we play in our head. That's essentially, what visualizing is. Movies we play in our head. So I realize this is a brief video, but now you have that hammer that we talked about in the beginning example with the two twins. That's the hammer, and it works. And I challenge you to try this. Now, if you'd like to read that book, The Overnight Student, again, you can find it with RC Online, but I'll also leave a link below where you can read it online yourself. So you might be asking yourself, well, how does this relate to the Robinson curriculum? Well, it's the same thing when it comes to math, a concept that they're having a hard time with, or their vocabulary, or when they get to the more difficult science text. This is a great technique to use to really understand and comprehend the material. Again, you don't know it unless you can teach it. If you are interested in the Robinson curriculum, I have a free 13-part video course that goes over everything from A to Z. So I will link it in the description below as well if you'd like to check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, comment below your thoughts, and I will see you in another video. Bye.